Why do businesses get jacked? Why do some companies feel comfortable and organized and cohesive, and some of them feel just screwy or fly by the seat of your pants or fly by night? If you have sampled or experienced any sort of cross-cultural jumping around, going from one industry to another, or one organization, an organization in the very literal sense of the word, when there's a handful of people, in my experience, 6 plus, really 10 to 13 plus, all the way up to 300, you're in an organization that starts to inherit a common culture. And in the corporate world, people even write job descriptions for change agents, change engineers, someone to come in and help the corporate culture. But getting back to the question, why do some businesses get jacked? And the answer is you. The answer is the leader. And let me give you some examples before you just throw this out the window. I think I most distinctly experienced this the first time when I was in the Coast Guard. Yeah, I was going to say it was like 2005. I was stationed overseas in Bahrain, in patrol forces, Southwest Asia. It was like Operation whatever, Desert something. And there were a number of patrol boats there. And patrol boats are unique because they only have a handful of people on it, like 25. And they have the same exact missions, the same exact tools and equipment. And for the most part, the same exact reporting structure. You have a crew on the ship that runs a ship, and then that reports up to an enlisted leader. And then there's a commanding officer and executive officer. So you have like the big three in charge right there, CO and XO, and then you have this enlisted leader, who's normally in E7 or E8. The point is, in this particular place, there were 6 of these patrol boats. So you have your overall mission. We're all Coast Guard. There was Navy there's Army, there's whatever. We're all supporting the overall war effort. But these 6 little organizations kind of sat docked separately. And I was a computer technician back then, for lack of a better word. It was a lot more than that, but I did technology, and the military and these boats ran on technology. So I would show up and solve problems for these ships. And I noticed what was interesting is from the cook, the mess cook, which is the guy washing dishes, to the plotter, they used to call them quartermasters, other things, to the telecommunications guy, they all had a very similar but unique attitude. And some of those boats were just straight up stank nasty. And I would go in there and I would ask myself, why does one boat feel so, classy is the wrong word, but why does it feel so sophisticated and mature and professional? And then why does this other boat feel like I need to bring brass knuckles with me and like drag people in the mud and brawl it out just to earn respect? And then you meet the commanding officer, and you see, it blew my mind. Like, it was a big epiphany, which you would think should be an obvious one, but that's just it's a microcosm within a macrocosm. So it's a great example. And I started to notice one of these guys that still I consider a mentor today, and this is, 10, 15 years later, this guy I admire and respect. He was just a dignified, healthy, fit commanding officer, and the whole crew, all the way down, personified that attitude, that culture. And then you get on the nasty boats and you meet one of the guys in charge. And so you have 2 scenarios. One, you even have an absent leader, so that the commission guy, the commanding officer, is kind of absent or aloof, and so maybe there's a gruff, brusque, salty enlisted guy, and that personality goes down. Or the CO, just the CO himself, is an actual, no disrespect, but it's just an actual pain in the neck to deal with. So the answer is, why do businesses get jacked? It's you. So that was probably the most pronounced example. But then I went over to, I was stationed in Puerto Rico shortly after that, which also had 4 or 5 patrol boats, similar experience. And even before that, I just remember another boat in Alaska, when I was stationed in Alaska, the personality of the whole crew was garbage. So now fast forward in the civilian world, and I started working for tech companies and then later construction. I'll give you an example of both. Being a business analyst or a consultant, so to speak, as an employee, a business analyst is kind of like bridges two worlds. But you're an employee, but I consider myself more of a mythical scout or world translator or world bridger. You just started to notice that some teams were neurotic, or some teams were cool, smooth, and well oiled. And then you meet the founders. And man, if you got a neurotic, always worried, going into battle, but we're talking about ones and zeros and accounts, like that translates down to the culture and of the people, and so they start acting weird. So one startup I worked at, the founder was a surfer. It was in Long Island, which I didn't necessarily think associate with surfers, but man, I tell you, things were just smooth, and that was high pressure shit. Military wise and corporate wise, there's a lot of parallel. Like you exchange on the military side, you have lives at risk, or on the corporate side, you have millions of dollars at risk, which to some extent is people's lives when you think about it. But this guy was, I don't know, Columbia graduate or something. He drove a Mini Coupe. The fact that I remember all these details, he'd come in with a salmon shirt or salmon pants. He'd come in at 8 or 9. His team was working. He just had processes in place. He had this mentality that at the end of the day, everything was processed and structured data. And he would bring you in and solve problems with you and set up processes so that you wouldn't have this fire again. And that company was smooth, even though we had intense deadlines every day, even though we were servicing other startups that relied on us to get their product out the door. And honestly, these are $1 million orders from Walmart sometimes. And if you botch that, their whole inventory gone. Anyway, I digress. He was smooth, cool, calm operator. The office environment, the company was smooth, cool, calm operator, and things got done. Now, on the other side, there was a contractor I worked for, a construction contractor. And I remember being up on the roof with him one day, and the guys were working their tails off, and he and I were talking, and I've always just been a knack for business. The laborers, they saw nails and hammers, and I saw inventory, supplies, operations, and dollar signs. And I just started asking questions, how do you factor all this in? How do you build your bids? How do you make your quotes? And he was stress-free, but he was aloof, so he was on a roof of a job, and he said, well, you got to get the guys paid, and you do your best to measure the area and square footage, and you get lumber, and you come in here and you work hard every day, and then at the end of 2 months, you hope you made a profit. Pause with me for a minute. He was profitable. He was a good boss as far as bosses go, but you gotta have a better game plan than that. And then the last example I'll give you was actually probably the fondest memories that I have of startup. I won't name their names, but there was 2 of them which really helped balance. One of the woman that ran it was neurotic, in my opinion. The guy that ran it was somewhere between aloof. He was like the engineer type. He was the engineer. She was sales. I've noticed that to be really successful in sales, you have to be a throat grabber and neurotic and thick skin. And then to be successful as an engineer, sometimes you have to be, it's an error factor. You have to be willing to let things fail and keep iterating and keep going for it. But they kind of balance each other out, but still the culture reflected that. So whoever was working with whom on a project, some guys looked constantly panicked and constantly like they were never succeeding and never doing enough. And the other guys were almost too laxed. So my point is, why is your business struggling? The answer is you. And this is more so a retro reflective video, because I just want you to think on that for a minute. I talk about the holy pause a lot, and I just mean that sometimes we get so caught up in our day-to-day that we forget to just, what's working? What's not working? Can I identify why it's not working? Can I measure the results? If I can measure it, can I change the levers, the factors I put into it? You see parallels in child rearing. I have a daughter, no disrespect to other parents, but if your kid is batshit crazy, there's probably some adult issues going on, not necessarily the kid. You see it in pet ownership, which, don't get me wrong, I'm not relating to parenting by any means. Don't flame me on this one. But if your dog is batshit crazy, you probably have an owner that's batshit crazy. And then if you have a business where you have a revolving door of employees and you're turning and burning your best talent and you can't hold on to people and everything seems to just cinch up at the last minute and everything's one monumental, stressful sprint to just get the deliverable, and it feels like the whole world is against you, you probably have some stuff right in here to work through. So this video is not about solving that stuff. There's lots of great videos out there. As a general theme, I recommend Good to Great, The Tipping Point, Malcolm Gladwell. Good to Great was Jim Collins. Didn't I make that mistake in the last video? The Tipping Point, Malcolm Gladwell. Don't Shoot the Dog, Karen Pryor. I read that book in 2000. That book is technically about training dogs and dolphins and goldfish, but man, you will come out of there a better business person. So again, I ranted on this one, but why do businesses get jacked? You. That business, like everyone in front of you, is a reflection of your personality, a reflection of your temperament, a reflection of your talents, and a reflection of your leadership. And so back on that accountability and leadership, if you need to look at those failures and say, what did I do wrong? What didn't I communicate well enough? What system didn't I monitor closely enough? What stopgap didn't I consider? It's okay to make mistakes, but you got to know when to pull it real quick and readjust. So that's it. I will leave you with slow is smooth, smooth is fast. It's a shooting adage. It's my favorite shooting adage. It applies to business. You have to methodically start iterating, launching stuff, put your processes in place, equip your team members to do great jobs, empower them to make decisions, let them know how you think, what your principles are, and put the right people on your team and empower them to go forward, and you will watch your business thrive. Hope this helps, guys.